All right, so recording has started. Cool. I am Shane Griffiths. I am one of the co-hosts of Divi Seattle. Also here is Braden. Braden is also a co-host of Divi Seattle. You there, Braden? He's on mute today.
Yeah, sorry, I have a mute button.
Oh, good. There he is. So today we're going to be chatting about SEO and Divi. So great to have everybody here today. I'm going to start sharing my screen and we'll jump into it.
Shane, I'm hearing some feedback, so I just wanted to request everybody who's not speaking to hit their mute button.
Great, thanks for that tip. All right, cool. Is that better, Dave? Just nod yes or no. Okay. Perfect. So I'm going to go ahead, zoom in here. This is going to be a basic outline of what we're going to go over today. So SEO is a big topic. It can be very complex. We're not really going to go over how to do SEO today. We're going to go over how to implement SEO on Divi on a WordPress site, some general best practices. So some of the things we're going to cover today is the site structure and URL structure. What are kind of some best practices for that? Permalinks, settings for URLs, Google Search Console, how to verify your site in that, how to set up Yoast, that's going to be the SEO plugin we're going to go over today. What is a sitemap? How does that work? Breadcrumbs, a robots file, heading tags and how the hierarchy works, meta titles, descriptions, featured images, how to hide a page from Google, image optimization, and then the fun stuff, creating some theme builder and meta templates in Divi to do some really powerful things. So before we get started, does anybody have any questions? Perfect. So let's jump into it. So for this example, I created a Divi demo site here. I'm going to pull it up. It's basically blank. And this is for a fictitious bakery. Right, so let's picture a bakery. Let's say we're going to make a website for a bakery. What do they care about? What are the different sections on the website that it should have? So one is a shop. So I installed WooCommerce. And for the shop, we're going to want a main shop page. And then we're going to want categories, such as wedding cakes, brownies, cookies. And then we're going to want products underneath those. Right, so that is how it looks on the front end. On the back end, I installed WooCommerce. I went over to products, categories. I created 4 categories here. And then I created some products and assigned them to categories. Pretty typical of a bakery. So the reason we're doing this is because creating a product will allow the website to show up when somebody searches for the specific product, such as a wild blueberry tart or a peanut butter cookie. But how many people actually search for those things when they want to find a local bakery? Not too many. What they're probably going to search for is the category itself. And that's why product categories are extremely important. So you want a category for each type of thing you sell: brownies, cookies, fruit tarts, and then we'll talk about how to optimize those in a few minutes. So structurally, that's our e-commerce component of this website. Then what else do we want for a bakery? We want our static pages. So that's going to be like our menu, maybe our pricing, maybe our about, contact. You create those static pages. So I've done those here. Pages, all pages. You'll see WooCommerce created a few pages there. Then how else are people going to search for a bakery? Well, maybe they might search for cake for wedding or cake for birthday, that kind of thing. So that's why it might be a good idea to create a page like special occasions. And then underneath that page, we might have a separate page for each one of those special occasions. Sweet 16, anniversary. Basically, you want a page for each type of thing somebody's going to search. All right, and then you want to figure out, should it be a regular page? Should it be a product? Should it be a product category? What type of page should it be? That's going to depend on your business and your website and what your offerings are. But this is how we're going to translate this into a website. So aside from that, it's pretty popular to have a blog. And a cool thing about a blog is it lets you show up for more informational searches. So I created a few blog posts here, and I organized them into categories. I took those categories and put them under this dropdown. So when working on your blog, make sure you try to bundle your posts into categories that make sense. Party ideas, baking tips, recipes, decorating tips. Those are 4 that might apply to a bakery. Now, the cool thing about creating categories is it lets you go to baking tips, and then you're going to see a list of all the different baking tip blog posts underneath that. So this gives you a good opportunity to rank for something like baking tips, where creating a blog post called baking tips is not going to. So that is posts categories. Those are our 4 categories here. And then lastly, tags. So tags are something that are, very easy to mess up in WordPress with SEO. A lot of people just will throw 1,000 tags on something and say, hey, it's going to make me rank. A lot of times it does the opposite. The important thing about, the critical thing with tags is you don't want a tag that is essentially the same as a product or a service, because then that page is going to compete with that product or service for that keyword. So where tags come in, tags, I created a tag for cookie dough, right? So if I click view that tag page, it's going to show me all posts about cookie dough. So maybe we make this cookie dough tag page something like cookie dough recipes or cookie dough tips. Give it a title that makes a little bit more sense. We could do that in Divi. We'll get into that later. But that gives us a chance to rank for something like that without having a whole separate page created about cookie dough. So you want to use your tags to try to rank for keywords that don't really deserve their own page, or you don't have enough time to create a whole page about it. But you think that a listing of posts that are somewhat related to that topic are going to be a good fit. That's a good use for tags. So structurally, for this bakery website, I've created a shell here, a structure, that essentially has a type of content that can rank for all different types of searches. So everything from the informational searches, such as gluten-free chocolate chip cookies or kids' birthday party ideas. We have posts that can rank for something very specific. For something a little bit broader, we have post categories, baking tips, decorating tips. For something a little bit more niche, we have tags. For actual services and other things we offer, we're going to have pages, such as, birthday, anniversary, all different kinds of occasion pages. I haven't added those yet. Then since we're a bakery and we actually sell products, we're going to have a category for each type of product we sell. And these are going to be some of the most powerful for an e-commerce site, your category pages. And then we have actual products, which will show up when someone really knows what they want. So that's our site structure. So if you're building a brand new website, this is the first thing you should do is write this out in a Google Doc. Write out your site structure and decide where everything's going to go and what type of content it's going to be. Is it going to be a page, a product, a category, a tag, blog post category, something custom? What type of content is it going to be, and what are you trying to rank for it? So that's site structure. Now, URL structure, pretty similar, but we really want URLs that make sense. Now, WordPress is pretty good about that. If I create a product called Blue Raspberry Tart, the URL is going to be /Blue Raspberry Tart. So nice and friendly, makes sense. So for the most part, you just want your URLs to be clean and make sense. Now let's talk about permalinks. So right here, this URL structure is going to be /product/Blue Raspberry Tart. That is the default with WooCommerce and WordPress if you don't change anything. It's okay, but it can be better. So this right here is a default WooCommerce breadcrumb, and this tells you where you are on the website. I'm under Home, Uncategorized, Blue Raspberry Tart. Ideally, you want this breadcrumb to match your URL structure, and right now it doesn't. So that's going to apply right here to our product. It's also going to apply to one of our categories here. So I'm going to go to this category, party ideas. This is all blog posts underneath party ideas. This URL is /category/party ideas. Pretty ugly. We don't really want the word category in there. And then a single blog post like this picnic desserts. This picnic desserts blog post is just /13 summer picnic desserts. It doesn't tell you what category it's under. So we're going to fix that. We're going to go to settings, permalinks. Very important not to do this on a live site unless you really know what you're doing. Doing this on a live site that's indexed in Google will change all of your URLs. And if you don't add redirects, you will lose all of your rankings, plus other things. So don't do this on a live site unless you know what you're doing. On a new site, it's not in Google, so we have a lot more flexibility. So we're going to start with our blog posts. So right here is where we can customize our default blog post URL structure. Right here, this shortcut shows, the default is /post name. So I'm going to click on custom structure and customize this. Before post name, I'm going to put category. So you just click on this category. You'll see it adds it in here. I'm going to click save change. I'm going to come back to this blog post, refresh. You'll see that it now goes to a 404 not found. This is what will happen to your website if you do that. All of your URLs will be broken. So instead, we're going to go over to our party ideas and click on that again. And we'll see that this now moved. This is now /party ideas /post name. Now, why is that good? Because it now puts the keyword into the URL. It also shows the user that this is a subset of party ideas, so they know, oh, wow, you have a whole bunch of party ideas. And then later on, we can add a breadcrumb to this post so that they could easily explore party ideas. So there's all different kinds of SEO strategies for the blog. However, if you're using categories in a way strategically, it makes sense to also use them in the URL strategically. So now let's look at our products. So this blue raspberry tart is /product/blue raspberry tart. So same thing here. I'm going to come over here and customize our product permalink. So our custom base, we actually want this to be product category. So I'm going to click on this one right here. It says /shop/product category/sample product. Give that a save. Come over here to our blue raspberry tart. And this now changed to /shop/uncategorized/blue raspberry tart. So this now matches the breadcrumb. That's great. But the default category is uncategorized. Not very useful. So I'm going to edit this. I'm going to come down here and check fruit tarts. Give me 1 minute here. Okay, there we go. We check fruit tarts. Give this an update. And our product is now /shop/fruit tarts/blue raspberry tart. So that is a very ideal structure for SEO. I'm just going to click on that product. And we'll see that our breadcrumb also changed to home fruit tarts, blue raspberry tart. Very easy for you to know where you are. Very easy for the user to see what category you're in and what other products in that category are available. Also very good for SEO because it creates a whole bunch of links to that category page with the perfect text, fruit tarts. So that is ideal. So that is how you customize your permalinks to have a favorable site structure. Again, best to do this when you're setting up a new site. If you're trying to do this on an existing site, you need to first look into redirects, how those work. That's a whole nother animal. All right, so now let's take a look at Google Search Console. So before we move on, I'm going to take a quick break. Does anybody have any questions about site structure or permalinks? Because those two areas are very complex, but they're the most important. I see a hand up. Let's see. Travessa?
Hey, it's Julius. Sorry for that. I need to correct that. So there are a couple of questions that are sitting in there, or inquiries in the messages asking about, well, this is going to break my site. Well, how do I work around that? Do you have a second to speak to any tools that you might recommend to do this? I know you can make some changes to your .htaccess file to set this all up. But if you've got something that might be a quick solution to help some of these who are kind of concerned about it, be a great answer.
Totally. Yeah, so the best way to do that is you add a site-wide regex redirect, which uses regular expressions to say if a page or section of your site used to be located under this subfolder, it's now under this subfolder. So that is a pretty complex topic. You can find a lot about it online. There's plenty of posts and good posts out there about how to do that. A good plugin for that is called Redirection. It's a free plugin. And that will help you give you the tools to implement it, but you're going to definitely have to look up the knowledge on how to implement it.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Yeah, I have familiarity with the topic. I was just figured might be able to provide something for those who might not know.
Totally. Let's see. Brent, yes, the recording will be available on YouTube and posted on the Meetup comments after this meeting. Any other questions? Let's see. John?
Yeah, just a quick question. When you're talking about making things available for searches, like something like blueberry tart. Now, if somebody just types in blueberry, is that a successful, does that connect up with your blueberry tart? Or if they just type in tart, or do they have to type in a whole blueberry tart for your blueberry tart thing to be useful?
So that is more of a general SEO question, which is a very complex topic. We're not going to get too far into that. But if you type in blueberry, how does Google know that you're looking for a blueberry tart? Blueberry and blueberry tart are two different entities. So you're going to need to type in blueberry tart to find a blueberry tart. And then actually seeing your page rank, that's a whole separate thing. But if you even want the possibility, you need to create a product or a page or a specific URL for that keyword. This is like the first step, you know. SEO is a race. If you want to win the race, this is how you enter. All right. Let's see here. Robin asked, how serious is it if we don't do this? Robin, are you referring to don't change the permalinks? Or are you referring to don't set up your website to have a good structure? Yes, permalink. So changing your permalinks helps set you up for success. If you change your permalinks right now, you'll break stuff. So you only want to do that if you have a strategy to redirect previous sections of your website. A website can rank without good permalinks. It certainly can. This is just what is recommended to give you, a good platform to strategically rank for all different things. All right. So we are going to move on now to the next part, which is Google Search Console. So Google Search Console is the part of Google that you have to connect your website to, and that's how you will see how your pages are being indexed in Google, what keywords you're coming up for, how many clicks you get, how many times you show up, all different stuff like that. That's all under Google Search Console. It's a free account. You come over here and go to search. You can just type in Google Search Console, you hit get started. You'll click add a website. And right here, you have the ability to add a website. So you'll go ahead and do that. Type in your URL right here. You have to type it in exactly as it appears on Google. So if that's HTTPS, make sure that's in there. If your website has www, make sure it has it in here. If it doesn't, make sure it doesn't. You'll type that in, you'll click continue, and then Google will ask, how do you want to verify? There's several different ways to do that. The easiest is with an HTML tag. So they'll give you a tag, you click copy, you come back to your website, you'll go into Divi, theme options, integration. You'll paste it right here in this first box, add code to the head. Scroll down and click save. Go back to Google and click on verify. Once you do that, your website will be verified. Then you will have access to historical data, and you'll be able to submit your sitemap. You'll be able to see all of that information right in Google Search Console. So once that's done, then we're going to move over to setting up Yoast. So there's several different SEO plugins you can use on a website. Yoast is the one that I've been using for a while, so I'm comfortable with it, but it doesn't mean it's the best or the only one. There are other ones out there, but for the purposes of this demo, we're going to use Yoast. Yoast does have several premium versions available. I just want to say right now, if you pay for premium Yoast, you're not going to get better SEO. Paying for a premium SEO plugin does not give you SEO. It's not a checkbox like that. It might unlock a few more options, but you most likely will not use them or need them. So install the free version of Yoast. That can be installed right under plugins. So I've now installed that. And we're going to go over how to set up Yoast now. So the two things I like to do first are set up social links and then put in the name of my website and then logo. So right here under Yoast, social. Right here where it says accounts, if you have any of these accounts, paste them in here and hit save. This adds hidden data to your website that Google can read, and it helps associate your website with all of your other profiles around the internet. So you do that once, you're done. Now we're going to come over to general. For the most part, you don't have to touch anything here. Most of the settings live under search appearance. So search appearance has several tabs here. General, the first thing you want to do is fill this out. So this says, are you an organization or a person? 99% of your websites will be an organization. So you click that, you type in the name. So this is just as your business would appear on Google, in a profile, on the name of your business card, anything like that. So I'll put Rainforest Bakery. I think Forest is one R. So you put in your business name, and then you pick a logo. The logo you want to be, I think, at least 250 pixels. Just try to put in a high resolution logo here. This adds hidden data to your website that Google can read, and it helps associate and pull all these things together. So that's your basic setup for Yoast. So now we're going to talk about sitemaps, what they are, how to customize them, and how to submit them to Google. So a sitemap is a list of URLs on your page or on your website that you want Google to index. So this could be products, it could be pages, it could be blog posts, it could be tags, it could be anything. Your website is going to have a lot of URLs on it. By default, you're going to tell Google that everything you want indexed, and that is not always the case. So I created this dummy website. I'm going to go to the sitemap right now, and let's take a look at how that looks. So once you install Yoast, your sitemap will be accessible underneath /sitemap_index.xml. So after going here, you're going to see that this is actually an index of multiple different sitemaps. And a sitemap is just a list of pages. So here we see there's 8 different lists of pages that we're saying we want indexed. So you'll see Yoast creates a separate one for each taxonomy. So they create one for posts. If you click on that, you'll see a list of all of your posts. Pages, you'll see that there's one here for projects, one here for products, because I installed WooCommerce. This is post category, default with WordPress. Post tag, default with WordPress. Product category comes with WooCommerce. Author comes with posts. The one that stands out here is project. So project is here because of Divi. That is Divi's custom post type. Chances are a lot of you don't use that. However, we're still telling Google, pay attention to it. Also an author sitemap. So if I click on that, that is a listing of all of the authors on the website. Probably don't want that. So we basically don't want to submit pages to Google that we don't actually want Google to show in the search results. That's a bad practice. So how do we customize that? Coming back to Yoast search appearance, there's a few different tabs up here. I'm going to start with content types. These are custom post types. So right now we see that there's 4: posts, pages, projects, products. If your website uses posts, you want this to be on. If your website doesn't use posts, you want this to be off. This controls whether or not posts is shown in the sitemap. So for this website, we want it on. Pages, we want on. Most of your websites will have pages on. Projects, if you're not using projects, come over here and turn this off. If I turn this off and I click save, and I come back to this sitemap and refresh it, you'll see that it's gone. Toggle that off, removes it from our sitemap index. Products, we want on. So that's our content types. Now I'm going to skip over here to taxonomies. We're going to see a whole bunch listed here. Categories are our post categories. If you're using those and you optimize those and they make sense for Google to show, then put it on. If not, put it off. Okay, so if your blog is not using categories, let's say you just have uncategorized, I recommend turning this off. Turning this off will not hide all of the posts that are uncategorized from Google. It will just hide the index page itself. For this website, I want this on. Tags, if you're not using tags intentionally, turn this off. Otherwise, you're just telling Google, hey, index a whole bunch of pages that are low quality. Never want to do that. Post format, this is a default WordPress thing. For the most part, you will not be using this. So I'm going to turn this off. Project categories, well, I'm not using projects, so we don't want to use project categories either. Project tags, same thing. We're not using those, off. Product categories, yes, we want those on. Product tags, I'm not using those. I'm going to turn that off. Product shipping classes, don't want that to show up. That is a utility class. We want that off. So we're going to give that a save now. We're going to come back to our sitemap. Give this a refresh. And the only thing left here that we don't want is author. So author lives over here underneath archives. So by default, we're also going to index a separate page for each author. We don't really want that, so I'm going to turn that off. And then a separate page for each date. So each month is going to have its own archive page. I don't want that. For the most part, you don't want that. Maybe news websites occasionally, but for the most part, you don't want that in Google. So I'm going to say no. All right, we gave that a save, refresh this, and now it actually has only the categories in here that we want indexed in Google. So this is the process of customizing your sitemap. Now that this is done, we want to tell Google about it. So we're going to give this link to Google in Search Console. And that way they're going to be able to check this list every so often to see if any of your pages have changed, to see if you've added any new ones. So to do that, we're going to copy this part right here, sitemap index. I'm going to come over here to Google Search Console. On the left-hand side, click on Sitemaps. And right here is where you add a new sitemap. So they already have your domain in here. You would just type in the sitemap index.xml and click Submit. That's how you submit your sitemap to Google. By submitting the index, we're also submitting all of the children in that index. So I'm gonna, this is for another website, I'm gonna click on their sitemap index. And here Google says sitemap processed successfully. We discovered 16 URLs. This is the date we last read it. Cool. So that's how you tell Google about your sitemap. You just have to submit that one time and then it automatically checks back. If you don't do that, then Google is going to crawl your website and just click on links and try to find all your pages that way. You can do that. I don't recommend it. This is a lot more predictable. All right, so we just covered Yoast basic settings. We covered sitemaps. Next up is breadcrumbs, robots, and then some more in-depth SEO stuff. So we're going to take a quick break here. I'm going to look at the chat for some questions. Let's see. Robin asked, what does Divi think is a project? A project is a custom post type that's added to Divi automatically. Right here, projects. So you can click add new project, and that is going to be similar to posts. So it's like a separate section of content. The URL is /projects for all of those. You can't change those in Divi. And you can use that. Most people don't. Karen said, once you set up Yoast for one site, can you export your settings and import them to others? That's a good question. I don't actually know. Looks like you can right here. So tools, import and export. If you do that, you'll want to make sure that you update the URLs because that might export actual social media profiles and other stuff. So you don't really want to mix that up with your clients. Seema said, can you change the sitemap after it's been submitted to Google? So Yoast will automatically update your sitemap as you make changes to your website. Google has that sitemap index page. So Google will always check that page. And then every time a page is changed, added, deleted, Google will be notified. Robin said, is that where I should be putting my events calendar? It's not happy where it is now. Most likely no. There's a plugin called the events calendar, which is, they create their own index and everything. But if you're just talking about a single events calendar that you created, I'm not really sure, but projects probably isn't the place for it because that URL says projects and you can't change that in Divi. Yes, Karen, we did chat about premium. It will not make your SEO better. It will unlock a few options, but you most likely will not use them. I haven't used it. Or rather, I've used it, but I haven't found it to be useful. So All right. So jumping back over here. So now we're going to chat about breadcrumbs, robots, and heading tags. Breadcrumbs, I'm actually going to move that to the end once we're talking about templates. So let's talk about robots. So robots, robots.txt. That is a technical, this is related to technical SEO. Your robots.txt is a file. It's always located on yourdomain.com/robots.txt. That file will tell Google and other robots that crawl your website which pages not to touch and what sections of your website not to touch. By default, when you create a website on WordPress, you don't have a robots file. So if I go to this /robots, it's there, but it's not editable. It's blank. You'll see that there's only 2 lines on here. The first one says user agent star. Star means everybody. So all bots that crawl the website. Disallow means don't crawl. / means everything. So by default, this robots is saying, don't look at my website. If your robots.txt file looks like this, it will be invisible to the internet, at least to indexers. So why does ours look like that? Settings, reading. No, where is it? Settings. Yeah, settings, reading. Try again. Okay. WordPress has this checkbox that says search engine visibility, discourage search engines from indexing the website. This is turned on for me by default because I'm in a development environment. So if you have this checkbox turned on, it edits your robots file to say that, and it will be invisible to Google and other crawlers. Very, very important when you launch a website to make sure this is unchecked. So I uncheck that. I'm going to go to my robots file. And you'll see that it's still like that. That's a WordPress bug. I encountered that a lot. So you can uncheck that, publish your site live, and you'll still be telling Google, don't look at my website. So it's very important that you have control of your robots file. So I put this on my site launch checklist. Before I launch a website, I make sure I create a robot.txt file that I can actually edit myself. Yoast does a good job of doing that for us. So I'm going to come over to Yoast, Tools. I'm going to come over to File Editor. And right here, we see robots.txt, and it is editable right here. Sometimes you'll come here on a site and it'll be blank. It'll say you don't have a robots and there's a button to create one. In that case, you just click that button and it creates one. Right here is how you actually edit that file without having to FTP into the website. So right here, I'm just going to click Save. I'm going to come over here and reload. And this is probably like a caching issue or something, but it usually updates pretty quickly. So that's probably a caching issue or something weird, but that's how you control robots. So you basically want to come here and make sure that this doesn't say disallow /. Because disallow / means don't look at my website. This is kind of a default robots file that Yoast creates, and it basically tells Google, hey, don't look in the WP admin folder, and that's it. So for the most part, just put that on your checklist. If you launch a website from development, just make sure that your robots file doesn't say disallow all. Unless you're working on a pretty large website, you shouldn't have to really customize the robots file that much. Okay, so next up, we're going to talk about heading tags. So far we've been talking mostly about technical SEO and setting things up. Now we're going to shift gears a little bit to on-page SEO, things we can actually see. So in this Google Doc, this whole thing right here has a structure to it. So informationally, this is the title of my document. So pretend this were going to be a page on the website. I will copy this, come over here, go to pages. I'm going to edit a page. I'm going to paste my content in here from the Google Doc. So this title is going to be our page title up here. And then each topic should be a heading 2. So I'm going to click on this whole thing, undo the bulleted list. So site structure, URL structure, that is a heading 2. The title of your page is always your heading 1. So heading structure, think of it like chapters in a book. Actually, like educational textbooks do an excellent job at heading structure. So this might be the title of the book right up here. Whereas a heading 2 is going to be each chapter in that book. Well, permalinks are a child of site structure, URL structure. So that should be a heading 3, because a 3 is a child of 2. So a very common SEO mistake I see is people use heading tags based on the font size, really. So if you want something to be small, you might throw it in a heading 4. That, you don't actually want to do that. So you can have a heading 2 that's really small by just changing the font size. Divi allows us to do that. But semantically, you want to make sure that your pages follow a heading structure that makes sense. So informationally, when you're laying out your page, make sure you start by assigning heading tags that make sense. So for a page like, let's see. For a page like special occasions, let's say we have 5 different special occasions listed on that page. Each one of those should be a heading 2. All right, so let's say one of those special occasions is weddings. And then underneath weddings, let's say we have wedding cakes. That would probably be a heading 3 because that is underneath weddings. And maybe we have pricing. That would be a heading 3 underneath weddings. So when you're laying out your pages, just make sure that you assign tags that make sense. In Divi, your post title will always be a heading 1. So Divi does a pretty good job of doing that for you. But if you're kind of customizing Divi and overriding it, make sure you assign a tag that makes sense. Blurbs. I think by default, blurbs will be like a heading 3 or a heading 4. A lot of times they're not supposed to be. So look at the page and see what it should actually be. Assign it to that heading tag. Chances are the font size will change. Well, then you need to change the font size to fit the design. But just don't assign heading tags based on the font size. So I don't have a good example visually of how that looks right now, but does that concept make sense? Does anybody have any questions about the concept of heading tags, hierarchy, document structure, that kind of thing?
Shane, would it be correct to say that, for example, I would never have a heading 3 tag if there was no heading 2 tag? Maybe that's a bad example. Maybe I should never see an H4 if I didn't have an H3 on the page. Would that be a correct statement?
That's absolutely. Yeah,
okay.
very, very good example.
Yeah.
So if you want to analyze a website, like look at your current website and see how am I doing on that, there's a good plugin for that. I'm just going to pull up a really long page I know about. Okay, this one's pretty long. So this Chrome extension is called Headings Map. And if you click on that, over here on the left, it's going to show you a tree of your headings. So this article is absolutely massive. Yeah, you can see the scroll bar here. It's a very long, detailed article. So on the left-hand side, you can see how that works. So 1, speed optimizing images and videos for Divi. That is the title up here. Then heading 2 is overview. And then another heading 2 is key takeaways. Another heading 2 is results. And then we have optimizing images for Divi. Underneath that is image file types to use with Divi. That's a 3. Underneath image file types, we talk about each file type. Those are 4s. So like very long, complex pages, like think like 2,000 word pages, it's very easy to get into heading 4s. Most pages you probably won't. You'll probably be fine with heading 2s, maybe an occasional 3. But you can use that Chrome extension to analyze your website to kind of see how are you doing with that. Now you can also think about elements such as a footer and a sidebar and things like that. You know, maybe you have a title and a sidebar and a footer. In general, that could be like a heading 2 or a 3, but that won't be the end of the world. But also don't be afraid to just put it in a paragraph, just a regular paragraph tag, not a heading at all, and then just make the font size larger. Like basically you don't need to use headings unless like a heading is created to show a parent-child relationship. Whether that child is just text or whether that child is another heading, that's the purpose of a heading. So just try to use that intentionally. All right, let's see, a few questions here. Sometimes I get Yoast saying there's more than one H1 on a page and a post, but I never find one. So use that plugin on the page and that will show you where it is. You don't want to have more than one H1 on the page. Won't be the end of the world, but Google doesn't know which one is actually the right one to use. Karen asks, on a monthly newsletter, where the headings would be the same on each month, does that help or hurt? So are you trying to have that newsletter show up in Google? Probably not. So you are? Okay. Well, then I guess it depends on what the title of that is. Like what keyword are you trying to rank that newsletter for? Like you don't really need to do SEO on every single page. I guess that's the point. Karen said today's feature story. It's hard to say. I think I'd need to see an example. Yeah, I think I need to see an actual example. But basically, not every page has to be designed for SEO. That's a really important thing to know. It's okay to have pages that you just don't plan to have those show up in Google. Not every page on your website, should be showing up on Google. That's totally okay. And for those pages, SEO really doesn't matter. To me, like what I think of a newsletter, I probably wouldn't want that to try to show up on Google. I think of like an email blast as a monthly newsletter. Whereas an actual news post, we'd want to rank that for the subject that it's on. All right, so now let's chat about meta titles and descriptions. So I'm going to pop up Google and I'm going to type in cheap wedding cake near me. Let's try to find somebody who actually did SEO on their website. Well, Walmart did. Okay. So right here, this title that appears in Google, this is called your meta title. This description below it is called your meta description. These two things will be added to your posts by default. If you have a post title that makes sense, then your meta title will probably be okay. But a lot of times you want to customize these. You want to rewrite these to be a little bit better and more enticing. Maybe work on wording and capitalization. Maybe put a year in there when it makes sense. A lot of times you'll want your meta title to be different than the title of your page, post, or product. So once you install Yoast, at the bottom of a page, you're going to get this little bar here. And this allows you to customize the title and the description. These little pink-purple tags here are shortcuts that will automatically spit out the title of the page as it appears in WordPress at the top, and your site title as it appears in WordPress settings general. So if you want to override this, for example, you'll click here, delete the first two, and then you're just going to have a blank slate, and it will be dash your site name. So let's say this page is for wedding cakes. Maybe we want to put the word best in here. So best is a word that might make a lot of sense on a title, but it wouldn't make a lot of sense to put on the page itself. It might look a little tacky. Whatever. Best wedding cakes in Seattle. Wow. There it goes. You type in here, you'll see this bar move. You want to try to get this bar in the green. That's an optimal length. It's okay to be a little bit shorter. If you're a little bit longer, chances are Google will cut it off at a certain point. There isn't really a magic number where Google will cut it off. It depends on a whole bunch of things. But in general, you want to try to put keywords in here. You want to try to make this make sense, make it look like something you would click on yourself. Try to put your important keywords towards the beginning. A lot of times you'll have a separator like this dash and then the name of your website. So if I had actually typed in the name of my website in settings general, it would be / Green Toad Bakery. So that way you're telling the user what the page is about and then who wrote it. That makes sense for a lot of pages, but not all of your pages need to have a dash in the name of your website. So if you have a title that's really long, feel free to delete it, so that it can accommodate the title of the actual piece of content. Your description, this is written less for keywords and more to try to make people click on it. So pretend you're writing an ad. If maybe here I would list the different flavors, maybe I would list the pricing, maybe I would list the sizes or free tastings available. Put whatever you can in here to make somebody click on it. If you don't fill this out, Yoast says, hey, please provide a meta description. If you don't fill this out, Google is going to write its own. A lot of times it's not going to be good. So I recommend customizing these if you can. Lastly, featured image. If you come here and click set featured image, what it will do is allow that featured image to show up in mobile. Google is not always going to show it, but it gives you the ability to show a featured image in mobile. That's always going to be square. You don't have control over that. So try to pick an image that looks pretty square. So that's the meta title and description. Very easy to write those for a single post, a single page, a single product, single whatever. Now let's chat about meta titles and descriptions for archives. An archive is going to be like blog categories or product categories. So if we don't customize those, let's see. I'm going to come over here to wedding cakes. This is a product category. So product categories are very, very powerful in e-commerce or Yeah, on any e-commerce site, but only if you customize them. So by not customizing these, our meta title is Wedding Cakes Archives / name of website. That will probably never show up in Google because nobody searches for archives. It's not going to be a good match. So to customize those, the first thing you want to do is change the template itself. So we're going to come back into Yoast and go to search appearance. Yes, we can leave the website. So search appearance, now I'm going to come over to taxonomies. There we go. So this is a list of all of our taxonomies on the website. Product category is the one we care about. So right here, you can see the template for our SEO title, our meta title. Here we have term title, which is going to be wedding cakes or whatever it's called, archives. So this is a magic place where you come to fix that. So instead of archives, something like products might make more sense as a default, right? Or you can put for sale near me. That might be a good one. Or not near me, but for sale in Seattle. So that would automatically change all of those categories. What would that look like? That would say wedding cakes for sale in Seattle. That would say brownies for sale, fruit tarts for sale, cookies for sale. Right? That's a meta title that actually makes sense. Has a good chance of ranking. So a lot of times I'll go in and change that default first. And then if it doesn't make sense on a few, then you can customize those few. So right here is where you do that. Search appearance, taxonomies. Here you can change your product categories. At the same time, come in here and change your blog posts. Archives, never going to show up in Google. So this might be tips. You might write articles, something that makes more sense. Do the same thing with your tags if you're using tags. All right, so now we're going to come over to WooCommerce. Let me save this first. All right, now we're going to come over to WooCommerce. Nope, I do not want to set it up. All right, products, categories. And I'm going to edit wedding cakes. Cool. So right here is where you can actually override the meta title and description for an individual term. So this is very important. Your product categories by default are not going to have a meta description. So it's going to pull the first whatever characters it finds. So unless you have unique content on that product category page, it's going to pull random things. Make sure you come here and actually customize this meta description. You can also upload an image here that will show up for category pages. Now, regarding Divi, my favorite thing to do here is you actually write a unique description in this box. So this description might be 3 to 5 sentences talking about your wedding cakes. You take a little snippet of that, you put it down here in the meta description. So let's say I create something like just going to take some warm-ups from here. Okay. We give it a meta description. That is way too long. You want to try to be in the green with that. If you go over, Google just won't show it. Let's say we give this an actual description in here. By default, this actual description doesn't show up anywhere in Divi. So you need to customize that. So let's see, I did that. I'm going to come down and click Save. So now this category has a description, but it doesn't show anywhere. We're going to go into Divi. I'm just going to pause the presentation for a minute here. Okay. Let's see, is that working again? Yep.
I haven't been seeing your screen on my phone for a little while. I thought it
Okay.
was me. Might be
Looks like
you.
it's working again. Okay, so now I'm going to create a new template in Divi. And we want to use this on all product category pages. So I'm going to click Archive Pages, all product category pages. Create template, save. We're going to build a custom body. Just waiting for Divi to load here. All right, we want to build from scratch. All right, I'm going to start with a text module. And right here, I'm going to click the dynamic content feature. We're going to use the post or archive title, which will become whatever the name of the category is. Then I'm going to edit this because that's just going to put it in text. We want to make this a heading 1. So I'm going to do caret H1 caret. We'll go before. After will be slash H1 caret. And now you can actually customize the title that it displays on the page. So I'm going to do something similar to what I did for the meta title. For sale in city. I'm actually going to move the H1 on the other side of that. There we go. Perfect. So now we have a heading title for that post category or product category that actually is optimized more for SEO. And now I'm going to come in here and create another text module. Dynamic content. I want to use the category description. Here it is. Give that a save. Add shop. And that's going to be products. Product category. Here we go. So we're going to do product category, current category. Give this a save. Save this page. I'm going to come back here and reload this wedding cake page, which was not very optimized out of the box. It said wedding cake archives, wedding cakes, showing 3 results, blah, blah, blah. And now we see did this save? Did not save. Okay, save. Okay, so now we have a heading 1 that's actually optimized. We actually have the content describing the category, all the wedding cakes we sell, and then we have the posts in that category, along with a matching meta title and description that are all optimized. The last thing I would add in here, we're just short on time now, is a breadcrumb. You can do that with Yoast. Right in Yoast, you come over here to Yoast, search appearance. Breadcrumbs. And then there's a checkbox to turn breadcrumbs on. Once you do that, then you just need a short code to actually insert them to make them work with Divi. If you just Google Yoast shortcode, there's a support page that has that listed. I think it's like bracket SEO breadcrumb. I forget what it is. But you can Google that, get the shortcode. You paste that in your theme builder, and that will actually print out the breadcrumb on every page. Very important to do for those archive pages. So with Divi, that's going to be one of your most powerful ways to optimize pages. Use that theme builder, actually customize the title of whatever the content is, customize the description, put something custom in there. And you can do that same thing for products, for projects if you use those, for tags, for categories, for product tags, product categories. You could do that for absolutely anything. Any kind of custom post you have, you could do that with. Events. Someone mentioned they used the events plugin by Modern Tribe, same thing. Any kind of custom post type you're using, recipes, if you use the recipe builder plugin. Make sure you customize your archive pages. Divi gives you the ability to do that. That is how you do it for SEO. The last 2 things I didn't touch on yet were no indexing pages and then image optimization. You're going to have pages on the website that sometimes you don't want to show in Google. So think about a checkout page. We don't want to show a checkout page in Google. So once you have Yoast installed, here we go. Same with cart. We don't want to show cart in Google. You click edit page here. We come down here to Yoast. Right below the meta description, there's an advanced tab. The first option, allow search engines to show this page in search results. That's going to be default yes, because we set the category for pages as yes. For this specific page, we don't want this shown. You click no, and you click update. Don't click this unless you know what you're doing. No follow is something totally separate from no index. So do not use that unless you know what you're doing. If you don't want a page in Google, you just change this drop down to no and click update. That will remove the page from your sitemap, and it will also remove that page from Google. Image optimization for SEO. Make sure your images are, compressed for speed. Serve WebPs if possible. Plenty of plugins to do that. The one I like is Imagify. When it comes to actually SEOing your images, meaning try to get your images to show up in Google Images, make sure you give images a title and an alt text that makes sense. Something you would type into Google Images if you wanted to find that specific image. So wherever this bridge is, you would type in the name, probably the city, maybe the name of the bridge. At night might be a good keyword for this. So you put that into your alt text and your title, fill both of those out. That is SEO basics for images. All right, so we're going to start wrapping up here. Karen asked, is there a reason to use a post archive rather than a page with a blog module? So your blog page shows all posts. A post archive is going to be for an individual category. So 2 separate pages. The theme builder is the place to go to edit your archive pages, your post archives, your tag archives. A blog post you edit as a regular page. Let's see. John asked, is there a way to resolve the author without, let's see. So that WordPress will consider the real authors to be authors. John, you can unmute for a second. Do you have the actual authors' names on those articles?
I do. I put them in as headers.
Okay.
Within the articles. Okay.
So what you'd want to do is create a separate WordPress account for each one and assign that person as the author.
Okay.
How many authors are you talking about?
Dozens, and it's growing. It's going to grow forever. So I don't think I could do that.
So I do recommend doing that, and then you just don't actually give them access to their accounts. But if you do that, you can use the theme builder, all right, to edit a single template for a blog post, all right, and then you add a person module in Divi. This is really cool. You add a person module, and that person module, you can use dynamic content to map the title, the photo, the description, the website, and then all of those things are controlled under WordPress users. So whatever you fill out in WordPress users will automatically map to the person module in Divi. So that's how you create what looks like an author box. You'll see that in a lot of magazines, a lot of websites, without having to manually create each one and manage them, and total nightmare to do that by hand. Divi allows you to do that through the theme builder, user accounts.
Okay, I'll check it out. Thanks.
Yeah. Let's see, Seema, any tips for image-heavy sites for artists? Does one write the description of the gallery page in the meta description? Yeah, so image-heavy sites are very difficult to work with for SEO. You want to try to get some real text on that page, even if it shows at the bottom below the image. Try your best to actually get real text on that page. Having it in the meta description certainly helps, but having it on the page itself is more important. You know, so I'm picturing like an archive page that says baby photos for a photographer, right? Make sure you have some content underneath the gallery of baby photos talking about the fact that you offer a service taking baby photo pictures. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing here because it's driving my computer crazy. Okay, much better. So yeah, we'll open this up. Anybody else have any other questions about SEO, Divi? Julius?
Yeah. Hey, Shane. So, kind of a point maybe we can talk about instead of user accounts for the gentleman's questions about the blog posts and the authors for the blog post, possibly a post type and an ACF that would take care of that, where he could just create a list of unique authors as a unique fields using advanced custom fields and populate things that way, pulling the dynamic data that way.
Yeah,
What are your
great
thoughts?
point. You can also do it that way. You could use ACF, exactly what Julius said, create a separate listing of authors and link them up that way. A little bit more complex because you need to assign authors to posts. You have to use relationships, but definitely another way to do it. But yeah, if possible, like definitely have an author box. Google loves knowing who actually wrote things. All right. Does having animations on photos affect SEO? I'm gonna guess that you're talking about a hover animation. Like if you hover over an image in Divi, it might change colors, get bigger. That's not really gonna change SEO.
Or load animation, since it might change the markup surrounding that image.
Yeah, anything like built into Divi, I know isn't gonna affect SEO. If you're doing something custom, it's always possible. If you get comfortable with Google Search Console, you can use that to crawl one of your pages and see how Google sees your page. And that's one of the best ways to see what you're doing, how what you're doing actually affects the page. All right. Cool. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording now.